My name is Alex Winters. I'm 29 years old. And if you've ever seen my name in magazines or business headlines, you probably think you already know me. Heir to the Winters Global Holdings empire. Billionaire lifestyle. Private jets. Fast cars. No rules. That's what people see. But that's not the full truth. The truth is, I never really learned how to live a normal life. I learned how to spend one. And for years, that was enough for me until my family decided it wasn't. I still remember the exact tone of my father's voice that not day. Angry, not emotional, worse, decided. He called me to the family estate. That alone meant something serious. When I walked into his study, I already knew this wasn't going to be a normal conversation. My father was behind his desk. My mother stood near the window, silent. Silence in my house was never a good sign. Sit, my father said. I didn't. I'm fine, I replied. He looked at me for a moment, then spoke like he was reading a contract. Your lifestyle is becoming a problem. I actually laughed. My lifestyle pays for half this building. My mother finally turned toward me. It's not about money, Alex. That got my attention because when my mother speaks, instead of reacting, something serious is coming. My father leaned forward. You're 29, unmarried, no responsibility, no structure. I shrugged. That sounds like freedom to me. He didn't smile. That's when I realized this wasn't a discussion. It was a decision already made without me. Then he said it. You will get married. For a second, I honestly thought I misheard him. I actually laughed. Come again? He didn't move. I said you will get married. That laugh disappeared. Gap. The condition I didn't see coming. I sat down slowly this time. Now I was listening. My father continued calmly. The board is questioning your stability as future CEO. On proof of maturity. I leaned back. So let me understand this correctly. I need a wife for investors? My mother spoke gently. A family image matters, Alex. That word again. Midge. Not love, not happiness, just appearance. I felt something tighten inside me. My father placed a file on the table. If you want full control of the company, you meet the condition. I stared at him. He stared back. That's when I understood. This wasn't advice. This was leverage. And I hated leverage because it meant I wasn't fully in control anymore.
My decision. I should have refused. That would have been the logical thing. But I didn't. Instead, I smiled. Because if there's one thing about me, I don't like being controlled. I'll marry, I said. My parents relaxed slightly, but I wasn't finished. I'll choose her. That changed the atmosphere instantly. My father frowned. That's not how this works. I stood up again. It is now, because in my world, rules only exist until I decide otherwise. And in that moment, I already had a plan forming in my head. If they wanted a perfect corporate marriage, I would give them the opposite. Someone simple, someone they would never accept, someone that would expose how ridiculous their condition was. A statement marriage, not a real one. At least, that's what I told myself the day I found her. 2 days later, I attended a charity event I didn't care about. I only went because appearances matter in my world. Smiling faces, fake kindness, wealthy people pretending to care. I hated every second of it. That's when I saw her. She wasn't trying to be noticed. That was the first thing I noticed about her. She stood near a donation table, organizing items quietly. Simple dress, no jewelry, no designer labels, just ordinary. But there was something unusual about her. She didn't look lost in that environment. She looked like she didn't belong in anyone's expectations. I walked closer, not because I was interested, because I was curious, and curiosity is dangerous in my world. First words between us. You don't belong here. I said it casually. She looked up at me. No surprise. No nervousness. Just calm eyes. I'm volunteering, she said. That was it. No explanation. No effort to impress me. Most people would have tried harder. She didn't. I should have walked away. Instead, I stayed. What's your name? I asked. Mary. Where are you from? Small town, she replied. Nothing special. I nodded slowly. Perfect. That was exactly what I needed. No connections. No influence. No complications. Just someone outside my world. The question that should not have been asked. I don't believe in slow conversations, so I asked her directly. How do you feel about marriage? She blinked once. That was it. Not laughter. Not shock. Just a pause. Like she was deciding whether I was serious. Excuse me, she said. I need a wife, I explained. It's not romantic. It's business related. Family pressure. She studied me carefully.
And then she asked the one question I didn't expect.
That hit deeper than it should. Why me? Because I didn't have a noble answer. I could have said anything, but I said the truth in my own way. I need someone who won't fit into my world. Silence. Then she said something that changed everything. Are there conditions? I raised my eyebrows. Most people would have walked away by now, but she didn't even flinch. Yes, I said. Rules, tests, boundaries.
She nodded once. Okay, just like that. No fear, no hesitation, no excitement either. And that should have felt like victory. But instead, it felt like something else. Like she already knew something I didn't. The night after I met her, that night, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying her face, not because she was beautiful, but because she was unreadable. She didn't react like someone desperate, or someone greedy, or someone impressed. She reacted like someone prepared. And that didn't make sense, because in my world, people always want something. But Mary, she didn't seem to want anything. I told myself it didn't matter. She was just a solution, a contract, a tool. But even I knew I was lying to myself. Because for the first time in a long time, I wasn't fully in control of the story anymore. Her side. Far away from my world, she stood under dim streetlights outside the event hall. I didn't see her, but if I had, I wouldn't have understood her expression, because she wasn't confused. She wasn't surprised. She wasn't scared. She was waiting. And before she walked away into the night, she whispered something I would only understand much later. He finally chose me. If you had asked me then whether I believed in instincts, I would have trusted facts, contracts, numbers, not feelings. But after meeting Mary, I couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't adding up. At the time, I thought I was choosing her. Months later, I would realize something terrifying. She had chosen me too, and I had no idea why. Our first real meeting, 3 days after the charity event, I called her. I expected hesitation, questions, maybe even excitement. Instead, she answered calmly, "Hello, Alex," as if she had been expecting my call. "We need to talk," I said, "about the marriage. Straight to the point. No small talk?" A faint laugh escaped her. No reason to waste time. That answer irritated me more than it should have. People usually adjusted themselves around me. Mary never seemed interested in doing that. We agreed to meet at a small cafe outside the city. Not one of the expensive places I normally visited, one of her choices. And for some reason, I agreed. The cafe was quiet. Rain tapped softly against the windows. When I arrived, Mary was already there. Of course she was. 5 minutes early, maybe 10. She sat by the window reading a book, not scrolling through her phone, not taking selfies, actually reading. That alone felt unusual. When she saw me, she closed the book immediately. I noticed the title before she did. It wasn't a romance novel. It was a book about business strategy. That surprised me. But I said nothing. My conditions. I sat across from her. "Let's be clear," I began. She nodded. "I'm listening. This marriage won't be normal. Okay. There won't be love. Okay." I paused. Still no reaction. No expectations. Okay. No emotional complications. Again. Okay. I frowned. "Does anything bother you?" She tilted her head. "Should it?" I stared at her. Who was this woman? Most people would have argued, negotiated, at least shown emotion. Mary simply listened, calmly, patiently, as though she already knew every condition before I spoke them. Something strange. Halfway through the meeting, a waiter accidentally dropped a tray. Plates shattered. Several customers jumped. Mary didn't, not even slightly. Her eyes moved immediately toward the source of the noise, calculating, assessing, almost like training. The reaction lasted less than a second. But I noticed it, and suddenly I found myself asking, who reacts like that? Certainly not a shy farm girl. Meeting my parents. 2 weeks later, I brought Mary home. The estate looked exactly the way I wanted it to. Intimidating, cold, designed to make outsiders uncomfortable. I wanted my parents shocked. I wanted them questioning their ridiculous marriage condition. Instead, something unexpected happened. Mary wasn't intimidated at all. As we entered the grand hall, she glanced around calmly. No awe, no nervousness. Nothing. Almost as though she'd walked through places like this before. That made no sense. My father noticed immediately. He notices everything. The dinner began quietly, too quietly. I could practically hear my parents evaluating her. My mother asked the first question. "Mary, where exactly are you from?" A small farming town. Polite. Simple. Perfect answer. Then my father asked, "What do your parents do?" A brief pause. The first hesitation I'd ever seen from her. My father passed away several years ago. Something in her voice changed. Just slightly. My mother died when I was young. The room fell silent. Even I felt guilty. For the first time, Mary looked vulnerable. Human, not mysterious, just sad. My mother immediately softened. "I'm sorry." Mary nodded. "It's all right." But I noticed something. She never actually answered the question. The business test. A few days later, I decided to test her. I don't know why. Maybe curiosity. Maybe suspicion. Maybe both. I left several company reports open on my office desk. Complicated financial reports. Documents most people would find boring. When I returned later, Mary was reading one. I laughed. "You understand any of that?" She looked up, calmly, then pointed at a section. "You should be worried about this division." I froze. "What?" She turned the document toward me. "The profit margins are falling." I stared because she was right. Exactly right. A problem my executives had been discussing all week. "How did you know that?" She shrugged. "It seemed obvious." Obvious? Nothing about it was obvious. Not unless you understood business. Not unless you understood business. My investigation begins. That night, I couldn't stop thinking. Business books. Perfect composure. Knowledge she shouldn't have. Something was wrong. Or hidden. The next morning, I called a private investigator. The best one money could buy. His name was Victor Hayes. Find everything on Mary. There was a pause. Everything? Everything. He nodded. "I'll start immediately." For the first time since meeting her, I felt uneasy because deep down, I wasn't sure what I wanted him to find. Deep down, I wasn't sure what I wanted him to find. The phone call. 3 days later, something happened. Something small, but important. Mary was in the garden. She didn't know I could see her from my office window. Her phone rang. She answered immediately, and then she spoke differently. The soft country accent disappeared completely. Her posture changed. Her voice became sharper, confident, educated, powerful. The conversation lasted less than a minute. When she ended the call, the old Mary returned, as if someone had flipped a switch. I stood frozen. What had I just witnessed? A moment of honesty. That evening, we sat together on a terrace overlooking the city. The sunset painted the sky orange. For once, neither of us spoke. Then, unexpectedly, Mary broke the silence. "Do you ever feel lonely?" The question caught me off guard. "What? Lonely?" I laughed. "I'm surrounded by people." She looked at me directly. That's not what I asked. For some reason, I couldn't answer because she was right. I had friends, employees, business contacts, but very few people who actually knew me, and absolutely nobody I trusted. Mary looked away toward the sunset. "I think loneliness feels worse when you're surrounded by people." Her voice sounded different, almost personal, almost painful. For the first time, I wondered if she was hiding sadness rather than secrets. The investigator returns. The following week, Victor called. His voice sounded unusual, concerned. "Alex, what did you find?" There was silence. Then, "That's the problem." "What problem?" "I didn't find anything." I frowned. "What do you mean nothing?" "I mean nothing." My stomach tightened. Victor continued. "No school records, no university records, no employment history, no social footprint. That was impossible. Everyone leaves traces. Everyone, unless someone removed them." The final twist. That night, I couldn't sleep. Again, I sat alone in my office staring at the investigator's report. Blank. Almost empty. No past, no history, no explanation. Then my phone buzzed. A text message from an unknown number. Just one sentence. "Be careful what you uncover about your future wife." My blood ran cold. I immediately stood. Another message arrived. This one worse. "Mary isn't who you think she is." I stared at the screen, my heart pounding, because for the first time, I realized this wasn't about a strange woman anymore. This was about a secret, a dangerous one. And somehow, I was already trapped inside it. If there's one thing I've learned about secrets, it's this. The truth rarely arrives all at once. It comes in pieces, small cracks, tiny moments that don't make sense until it's too late. And by the time I reached part 3 of this story, I had already made a mistake. I had started caring about Mary, not enough to admit it, but enough to make her secrets matter. And that was dangerous, because the closer I got to the truth, the more I realized someone was trying very hard to keep it hidden. The text message. I didn't sleep that night. The anonymous messages kept replaying in my head. Mary isn't who you think she is. Who was she then? A liar? A criminal? Someone using me? Every possibility felt ridiculous, yet none of them felt impossible anymore. By sunrise, I had made a decision. I wasn't going to wait for answers. I was going to find them myself. Following Mary. 3 days later, my opportunity arrived. Mary told me she was spending the afternoon visiting a local charity center. Simple enough. Normal enough. But something about the way she avoided eye contact bothered me. So I followed her. I'm not proud of it, but I did. I stayed several cars behind, far enough to avoid being noticed, close enough not to lose her. At first, everything seemed normal. She drove toward the city. Then suddenly, she turned into one of the most expensive districts in the country. I frowned. This wasn't anywhere near a charity center. Yep, the black car. I watched from across the street. A sleek black luxury sedan pulled up beside her. Not just expensive, elite. The kind of vehicle used by billionaires and government officials. A man stepped out, tall, silver-haired, perfectly tailored suit. He looked powerful, the kind of man who gave orders for a living. Mary approached him, and then something happened that made my stomach tighten. The man hugged her, like family, not business, not friendship, family. I stared in disbelief. Who was this man, and why had Mary never mentioned him? And the woman I didn't know. What happened next shocked me even more. Mary's entire demeanor changed. The shy farm girl disappeared, gone, completely. Her posture straightened, her confidence sharpened. She spoke with authority, elegance, education. Everything about her transformed. It was like watching two different people. I suddenly realized something. The woman I had proposed to might never have existed at all. The investigation deepens. That evening, I called Victor again. I need that man identified. I sent him photos. Victor promised results within 24 hours. The next day, he called back, and his voice sounded nervous. Very nervous. Alex, what is it? The man you photographed is Richard Blackwood. I paused. The name sounded familiar. Then it hit me hard. Richard Blackwood, one of the wealthiest businessmen in the country, owner of multiple corporations, media companies, investment firms, a man whose influence reached far beyond money. My pulse quickened. Why was Mary meeting someone like him? Nothing makes sense. That night, I confronted her. Not directly, carefully, testing. We were having dinner. The atmosphere felt normal, at least on the surface. Then I asked casually, "How is the charity center?" She smiled. Good. Lie. Simple, effortless. A lie delivered without hesitation. I felt disappointment I couldn't explain, because I wanted her to tell me the truth. Instead, I found myself lying too. That's nice. And suddenly dinner felt colder than usual. See, why did I hurt? I spent hours asking myself a question I couldn't answer. Why was I upset? Mary didn't owe me anything. Our marriage wasn't built on honesty. It wasn't even built on love. It was supposed to be an arrangement, a transaction. Nothing more. So why did her lies bother me? Why did her secrets feel personal? The answer scared me, because for the first time, I realized I was emotionally invested. And emotional investment creates vulnerability. Emotional investment creates vulnerability. The business attack. A week later, everything exploded. Not in my personal life, in my professional one. One of our largest corporate divisions suffered a massive financial attack. Confidential information had leaked. Stock prices dropped. Board members panicked. Investors demanded explanations. The company was losing millions by the hour. I spent 2 straight days inside conference rooms. No sleep, no answers. Pressure from every direction. For the first time in my life, I felt completely overwhelmed. Mary's warning. Late that evening, I returned home exhausted. Mary was waiting in my office. That alone was unusual. She looked serious, more serious than I had ever seen her. You need to stop trusting Daniel Harper. I froze. Daniel Harper was one of my senior executives. What? She stepped closer. He's the leak. My heart skipped. How would you know that? Silence. Then, I just do. That answer wasn't enough. Not anymore. Mary, who are you? For the first time, I saw fear in her eyes. Real fear. Not for herself, for me. The truth she wouldn't tell. She looked away. You wouldn't believe me. Try me. She shook her head. I can't. Why? Because if I tell you now, her voice cracked slightly. Everything changes. The room fell silent. I stared at her, searching for answers, finding none. Then she whispered, just trust me. Trust. The one thing she hadn't earned. And yet, some part of me wanted to. The boardroom. The next morning, I investigated Daniel, quietly, carefully, and within hours, I found evidence, hidden communications, unauthorized transfers, leaked information. Mary had been right, completely right. Daniel was responsible. I sat alone in my office staring at the evidence, my hands trembling slightly, not because of Daniel, because of Mary. If you're expecting me to say that I immediately confronted Mary after overhearing that phone call, I didn't. I couldn't. Because sometimes the truth you've spent weeks chasing suddenly appears in front of you, and you're terrified to touch it. For days, I carried those words around like a weight inside my chest. The Blackwood inheritance won't stay hidden forever. The sentence haunted me. Every conversation with Mary felt different now. Every smile, every glance, every silence, because suddenly I wasn't looking at a small-town farm girl anymore. I was looking at a mystery, and I was beginning to realize that mystery was much bigger than either of us. The question I couldn't ignore. 3 nights later, I found Mary sitting alone in the library. Rain tapped softly against the windows. A fire burned quietly in the fireplace. For a moment, I simply watched her. She looked peaceful, almost fragile, and that made what I had to do even harder. Mary, she looked up, immediately sensing something was wrong. I sat across from her. Neither of us spoke. And then I finally asked, "Who are you?" The color drained from her face, not dramatically, just enough to tell me she understood exactly what I meant. The room became very still. Alex? No. My voice came out sharper than intended. No more half-truths. She lowered her eyes. And for the first time since I'd met her, she looked tired. Not physically, emotionally. Like someone who had been carrying a burden for too long. Her confession begins. For several seconds, she said nothing. Then she whispered, "My full name isn't Mary Collins." I already knew, but hearing it still hurt. Because once the truth begins, nothing remains the same. She looked at me, directly. No masks, no pretending. My name is Mary Blackwood. The name landed like thunder. Even though I'd suspected it, even though I'd practically proven it, hearing it made it real. Richard Blackwood, one of the most powerful men in the country, his daughter, his heir, his blood, and she had hidden it from me from the beginning. The anger. I stood immediately. I couldn't help it. I felt betrayed, humiliated, used. How long? My voice echoed through the room. Since the beginning. The honesty somehow hurt more. You lied to me every day. Tears formed in her eyes. But she didn't defend herself. She didn't argue. She simply nodded. Yes. That answer broke something inside me. Because I wanted an excuse. I wanted a justification. Instead, she gave me the truth. And sometimes the truth hurts more than lies. Why she disappeared. Mary took a deep breath. Then she told me everything. Years ago, after her mother died, the Blackwood family began falling apart. Power struggles, greed, manipulation, people fighting over money they hadn't earned. Her father became obsessed with protecting the family empire. The larger the company grew, why me? There was still one question I needed answered. The most important one. Why me? Mary looked away, and suddenly tears escaped. Real tears, the kind people cannot fake. Because I knew who you were. I froze. What? She nodded slowly. I knew exactly who you were. The room seemed to tilt. You knew me before the charity event. Yes. Every answer created 10 new questions. 2 days later, my father called me. His voice carried the same authority it always had. Walk away. I frowned. What? Walk away from the Blackwood situation. He sounded serious. Protect the company. I looked toward the garden where Mary stood alone. For years, I would have listened. For years, business would have come first. But something had changed. Something bigger than money. Something bigger than inheritance. For the first time in my life, I knew exactly what mattered. The choice. I found Mary outside. The evening sun painted the sky gold. She looked tired, broken almost, like someone expecting abandonment. And honestly, I understood why. Most people in our world choose power, not people. I sat beside her. Neither of us spoke at first. Then finally I said, when I met you, she looked up. I thought you were my rebellion. A small smile appeared. I continued. I thought this marriage was a joke. Her eyes watered. I took her hand. The same hand I'd once viewed as part of a transaction. Now it felt different, real. I was wrong. A tear rolled down her cheek. So was I. I laughed softly. About what? She smiled through tears. Almost everything. Almost everything. The end of the beginning. The inheritance issue eventually resolved itself. The business survived. The media found new scandals, as they always do. But something far more important happened. The contract between us disappeared. The conditions disappeared. The tests disappeared. For the first time, there was no arrangement, no strategy, no rebellion. Just two imperfect people who had spent years hiding from themselves and somehow found each other. Not because of wealth, not because of family, not because of destiny, but because beneath all the secrets, we both wanted the same thing. A place where we could stop pretending. My name is Alex Winters. I'm no longer the man I was when this story began. I thought money solved problems. I thought control created happiness. I thought marriage was a business transaction. Mary proved me wrong. The farm girl I chose to shock my parents was never a farm girl at all. She was a woman carrying her own scars, her own secrets, her own loneliness. And in the end, the greatest inheritance I received wasn't a company. It was the truth. That love isn't something you find when everything is perfect. Sometimes, you find it hidden inside the very secret that almost tears everything apart.